My name is Joanna Sinclair. I'm 37 years old. The night I came home with the layoff notice folded in my bag, my sister didn't ask if I was okay. She asked who was going to pay her car loan. My mom nodded like that was a reasonable first question. My dad walked into my bedroom, pulled a cardboard box from the closet, and started packing my things right there in front of our aunt, in front of the neighbor sitting on our couch with a cup of tea still warm in her hands. He said my sister needed my room more than I did. I stood in that hallway holding 15 years of mortgage payments, insurance premiums, and car notes in my name, and none of it mattered. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, could have changed everything. But by the time they found out, I was already gone. Before I take you back to that night, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit like and subscribe. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Now, let me take you back to a Tuesday evening in March, the night everything fell apart. The fluorescent lights in the conference room at Ashford and Graves buzzed the way they always did, but that Tuesday, they sounded louder. My manager sat across from me with an HR rep I'd never seen before, a folder between them, my name printed on the tab. Company-wide restructuring, he said. We're eliminating 40% of the analytics division. 12 years at that firm, not a single negative review. I'd brought in 3 of their top 10 clients, none of that fit inside the folder. I signed the papers, took the box they offered. The irony of that box wouldn't hit me until later, and walked out by noon. In the parking garage, I sat in my car for 11 minutes. I counted. Then I called Greg Whitmore, my business partner. I got laid off, I said. He didn't miss a beat. Then it's time, Joe. The firm's ready. Austin office is waiting. When do you fly down? I should have said tomorrow. I should have said tonight. Instead I said, let me go home first. Let me tell my family. Greg went quiet for a second. Joe, you sure about that? I wasn't, but I drove to Carterville anyway. 45 minutes south on I-75, past the Walmart, past the Baptist church, past the Sinclair mailbox at the end of a gravel driveway. The same mailbox my mortgage payments kept standing. When I pulled in, I counted the cars. My parents, Megan's, and Patty's old Buick, Mrs. Dawson's sedan from next door. 4 cars meant company. Company meant witnesses. I grabbed my bag and walked toward the front porch, still rehearsing how I'd say it. Something steady, something that wouldn't worry them. I didn't get the chance. The screen door hadn't even closed behind me when Megan's voice carried from the living room. So, it's true you got fired? She was sitting cross-legged on the recliner, phone in hand, looking at me the way you look at a fender bender on the highway. Curious, not concerned. Laid off, I said. There's a difference. Whatever. Megan turned to my mother. Mom, I told you. Who's going to pay my car loan now? My mother, Linda Sinclair, was sitting on the couch next to Aunt Patty with a plate of lemon squares between them. Mrs. Dawson from next door occupied the armchair by the window. 3 women, 3 witnesses, and not one of them flinched at what Megan had just said. My mother set her tea down. Joanna, sit. We need to talk. Her tone wasn't worried. It was administrative, like she was chairing a meeting about a budget shortfall, which I suppose she was. I was the budget. How did you already know? I asked. Megan shrugged. Tyler's girlfriend works reception at Ashford. She texted me this morning, so they'd known for hours. They sat in this living room, eating lemon squares, and discussed my layoff before I even cleared my desk. I looked at Aunt Patty. She was staring at her teacup. Mrs. Dawson was doing that thing where she pretends to read something on her phone. Joanna, my mother said again. Sit down. I sat. Megan leaned forward. You could have at least given us a warning. I have a payment due Friday. I almost laughed because the absurdity of it was so complete, so perfectly shaped that it felt rehearsed. But Megan didn't rehearse things. She just said whatever served her first. Let me go back further because that living room didn't happen overnight. I graduated from the University of Georgia at 22 with a finance degree and a job offer from Ashford and Graves that started 3 weeks after commencement. My grandmother, Ruth Sinclair, 84 now, sharp as a tax audit, drove 2 hours to watch me walk across that stage. She was the one who pinned the tassel on my cap afterward. "You're going to do well, Joanna," she said. "Help your family when you can. But remember, helping and being used are two different animals." I remembered for a while. It started small. $500 a month wired to my parents' account. Groceries, the electric bill Megan left unpaid when she dropped out of community college. I was 23 and it felt good. Honestly, it felt like purpose. Then my father Ree was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. He was 51, working full-time at the lumberyard. Insurance through his employer covered the basics until the lumberyard cut him to part-time at 57. His coverage vanished. I was 29. I picked up his premium, $780 a month. By 32, he could barely keep up with the mortgage on the house. My mother didn't work. Megan didn't work. Or she did briefly between long stretches of not working. I took over the mortgage, $2,400 a month. I set it on autopay like everything else. I did the math once. Over 15 years I sent home roughly $340,000. I never put it in a spreadsheet. I never printed a receipt. I didn't need credit for it, but I thought at minimum they knew. I thought they felt it. They didn't. 2 years before the layoff, my mother called about the car. Megan wanted a new SUV, $38,000. She had no savings, no steady income, and a credit score that wouldn't qualify for a library card. My mother's solution was simple. I'd consign the loan. No, I said, Megan needs to build her own credit. I'll help her with the down payment, but I'm not co-signing. What followed was 2 weeks of silence. No calls, no texts, nothing from my mother, nothing from my father, and one passive-aggressive Facebook post from Megan that read, "Some people forget where they came from the moment they think they're better than everyone else." Then Aunt Patty called, "Your mother's telling people at church you abandoned your sister." I held the phone and felt something I hadn't expected. Shame. Not because I'd done anything wrong, but because in my family, no and betrayal had always been spelled the same way. I co-signed the loan. The day I put my name on Megan's car note, $650 a month, I did something else. I called Greg Whitmore, a colleague I trusted, and said 4 words. "Let's start our own." He'd been pitching me the idea for a year. A boutique financial advisory firm, small business clients, lean overhead. We filed the paperwork that same week. Sinclair and Whitmore Financial Advisory. My name went first because Greg insisted. "You're the engine, Joe. I'm the GPS." I didn't tell my family. Not because I was hiding it, but because nobody asked what I did with my evenings. Nobody asked why I was on calls at 10 p.m. Nobody asked me anything that didn't involve a dollar sign. And so the company grew in the dark. By the time Ashford let me go, Sinclair and Whitmore was 2 years old with 4 employees, a small office on East 6th Street in Austin, and a client list I'd built one handshake at a time. Year 1 revenue, $180,000. Year 2, $340,000. Not a fortune. Not a headline, but real money earned from real work. Forecasting tax strategy, restructuring plans for family restaurants and auto shops, and small construction firms that couldn't afford the big consultancies. I kept my day job because it gave me health insurance and because I'd been trained to play safe. But the truth was Sinclair and Whitmore could carry me. The math was clear. Here's the thing that still stings. I had a plan. In 6 months, once the firm hit its next revenue target, I was going to leave Ashford voluntarily, move to Austin full-time. And before I left Georgia, I was going to pay off my parents' mortgage in full. All of it. One lump check, a farewell gift they'd never have to repay. I'd even drafted the letter I'd include. It said, "This is for the house. Take care of each other." That letter sat in a folder on my desktop labeled, "Someday." I deleted it the night my father packed my things. My mother never once asked what I did after work. My father never once asked if I was happy. Megan never once asked me a question that didn't start with, "Can you?" and end with a number. Nobody knew about the company because nobody looked. But that night, sitting in my parents' living room with lemon squares in judgment and 4 cars in the driveway, none of that mattered yet. The worst part was still coming. My mother folded her hands. She did that when she'd already made a decision and wanted it to look like a discussion. "Joanna, here's the situation. Megan needs a proper room. She's been sleeping on the pull-out downstairs for months. You're barely home. You work late. You travel. It makes more sense for Megan to have your room. You want me to move out?" I said, "I want you to think about your sister." She paused, adjusted her tone the way she always did when she needed the sentence to land softer than it was. "You had a job? Well, you had a job. Now you'll need to find a new place anyway. It's practical." Megan pulled her legs up onto the recliner. "You don't have kids. You don't have a husband. You're flexible." I looked at Aunt Patty. She was pressing her thumb into the arm of the couch, staring at a spot on the carpet. Mrs. Dawson had stopped pretending to check her phone and was just sitting very still, the way people do when they know they're watching something they'll talk about later. "When did you decide this?" I asked my mother. She didn't answer. "Mom, when?" This morning. This morning. While I was still at my desk at Ashford cleaning out 12 years of work, my mother was rearranging her house to erase me from it. "I went into your room this afternoon," she continued almost casually. "Moved some boxes to the garage just to get things started." I stood up, walked down the hall, opened my bedroom door. Half my bookshelf was empty. The framed photo of my college graduation, the only picture of me on any wall in this house, was gone. The nail hole was still there. They hadn't even waited. I heard footsteps behind me. My father, Ray Sinclair, was 64 years old, 6'1", and had the kind of quiet that people mistook for calm. It wasn't calm. It was avoidance pressed into the shape of a man. He walked past me into the room carrying a flat-pack cardboard box. He popped it open, set it on the bed, and started placing my things inside. Folded shirts, a jewelry box from Grandma Ruth, a coffee mug from my first day at Ashford. "Dad," he didn't look up. "Dad, look at me." His hands stopped, but his eyes stayed on the box. "Your sister needs this house more than you do, Joanna. You'll be fine. You're always fine. You're always fine." 4 words. And in them, the entire architecture of how my family saw me. Joanna pays the mortgage. She's fine. Joanna covers the insurance. She's fine. Joanna co-signs the loan. She's fine. Joanna gets laid off and evicted on the same day. She'd be fine. She's always fine. I looked into the box. Sitting on top of my folded clothes was the graduation photo frame and all. My mother must have taken it down this morning. While she knew, while I didn't, while I was still employed and still paying and still fine. From the hallway, I heard Megan open a browser tab on her phone. She was already shopping for curtains. I picked up the box, then the second one already packed by the door. I carried them to my car, one in each arm, past the living room where my mother sat with her hands still folded, past Aunt Patty, who stood halfway up from the couch like she wanted to say something, but sat back down when my mother looked at her. Nobody followed me outside. The driveway gravel crunched under my tires the way it always did. I'd heard that sound 1,000 times. Coming home from school, from college, from 12-hour days at a desk that earned me nothing in this house except the right to keep paying for it. I drove 11 miles before I pulled into the parking lot of a Chevron station off Highway 41, engine running, hands on the wheel. I sat there for 10 minutes. It wasn't a layoff. Losing a job stings, but I've got a resume and a Rolodex and a company with my name on the door. That part one could fix by morning. It was the photo. That bare nail in the wall where my graduation picture used to hang. My mother took it down before I even knew I'd been let go. That means she looked at my face in that frame, decided I was leaving, and pulled the nail. 15 years, $340,000, and they removed me from the walls in an afternoon. I called Greg. The Austin office, I said. Is there room for me? I've had a desk with your name on it for 6 months. I was just waiting. I'm driving to a hotel tonight. I'll book a flight in the morning. I'll pick you up from the airport. Joe, you okay? I told him I was fine because that's what I do. After I hung up, I cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just sitting in a gas station parking lot in rural Georgia with 2 cardboard boxes in the back seat and no home behind me. I cried because I realized that in 15 years of sending money, not one person in that house thought I was worth keeping. Less than an hour after I drove away, Megan hung new curtains in my room. I found out later from Aunt Patty. Austin in March smelled like cedar and fresh rain and something I couldn't name for the first 3 days. On the 4th day, I figured it out. It was absence. The absence of obligation. Greg picked me up from the airport on a Wednesday morning. By Thursday, I had a key to the office on East 6th, a converted warehouse unit with exposed brick, 4 desks, and a whiteboard covered in Greg's handwriting. Our team, Lisa, Marcus, Devin, and Priya, 4 people I'd hired over late-night Zoom calls while sitting in a bedroom my family was already planning to give away. Welcome to headquarters, Greg said. He taped a paper sign above one desk. J. Sinclair, co-founder. I found a 1-bedroom apartment 3 blocks from the office, 600 square ft, white walls, 1 window facing an oak tree. I signed the lease the same day and slept on an air mattress that night with the window open. The next morning, I sat at my desk and did something I hadn't done in 15 years. I opened my bank account and looked at the balance without subtracting anyone else's expenses from it. The autopay transfers were still running. Mortgage, $2,400. Dad's insurance, $780. Megan's car, $650. Every month, $3,830 left my account and landed in a life that had just told me to leave. Greg leaned against the doorframe. You're still paying them, aren't you? I didn't answer. Joe, they packed your boxes. I know, then why? I minimized the screen because saying it out loud that I was still hoping someone would call and say they were sorry felt worse than just paying. Nobody called. 14 days. I counted them the way you count stitches after a surgery. Each one pulling, each one holding something closed that wanted to open. No call from my mother. No text from my father. No voicemail from Megan asking where I was, if I'd eaten, if I had a roof over my head. On day 10, I made the mistake of opening the family group chat. Megan had posted a photo. My old room, repainted dusty rose, new curtains, a vanity table with a ring light. The caption, finally got my own space. My mother commented, looks beautiful, sweetheart. I scrolled back through the chat. 14 days of messages about Megan's room makeover, a recipe Linda found for slow cooker chili, and a photo of my father's new tomato plants. 14 days of a family continuing as if a limb hadn't been amputated. I put the phone face down on my desk. That night, I pulled up my banking app. The autopay screen glowed. 3 line items. 3 lifelines running from my account to a house that had scraped my name off its walls. Greg had gone home. The office was dark except for my laptop. I sat there with the cursor hovering over cancel recurring payment. I didn't click. Not yet. I told myself I was being strategic, that cutting the money without warning would be reckless. That I needed a plan, that a financial professional doesn't make impulsive decisions, but that was a lie. I didn't cancel because some stupid stubborn part of me was still refreshing my phone at midnight, waiting for a notification that said, Mom or Dad, and started with, We're sorry. The notification never came. The autopay kept running for now. Day 16, my phone lit up. Megan, a hit of something. Hope maybe or his cheaper cousin reflex shot through my chest before I could stop it. I picked up. Hey, Megan said casual like she was returning a missed call from a takeout place. So my car insurance is due next week. Can you handle it? No. Hello. No. Where are you? No. Are you alive? Also, she continued, Mom says the water heater broke. She needs like 2,000. I let the silence sit for 3 seconds. Megan hated silence. She filled it. Hello, Joanna. You there? Megan, do you know where I am right now? I don't know. Nashville, wherever. Can you just send it? I'm in Austin, Texas. I've been here for 2 weeks. Silence then. Okay, cool. So, about the insurance? I hung up. I set the phone on my desk and stared at it like it had teeth. 16 days. The first words my family had for me were a dollar amount. That was the moment. Not the layoff, not the boxes, not my father's hands folding my shirts. This Megan calling from the room she's stolen, asking me to pay for the car I never wanted to consign, and not knowing or caring that I'd moved to another state. I opened my laptop, created a new document, and I did the thing I should have done years ago. I wrote a professional email, the kind I'd write to a client terminating a contract. Clear terms, specific dates, no emotion, no accusations, 30-day notice. Greg had always said I'd know the moment when it came. He was right. It didn't arrive with a bang. It arrived with Megan saying, cool. So, about the insurance, I wrote the email at 11:14 p.m. on a Tuesday. The office was quiet. Austin traffic hummed 2 stories below. I CC'd all 3 of them, Linda, Ray, Megan, because clarity doesn't work in whispers. Subject line, financial transition, 30-day notice. The body was 4 paragraphs. No story, no grief, just structure. Effective May 1st, I will discontinue the following monthly payments. Mortgage on 14 Birch Lane, Carterville, $2,400. Health insurance premium for Ray Sinclair, $780. Auto loan for vehicle registered to Megan Sinclair, $650. These payments have been maintained at my personal expense for periods ranging from 2 to 8 years. This email serves as formal 30-day notice of discontinuation. For Dad's insurance, I will extend coverage payments for an additional 60 days beyond May 1st to allow adequate time for enrollment in a marketplace plan or Medicaid. I'm happy to provide guidance on the application process. This is not a punishment. This is a transition. I'm giving you 30 days to arrange alternative financial plans. I signed it with my full name. Not love, not your daughter. Just Joanna Sinclair. Greg was still awake. I forwarded it to him before hitting send. His reply came in 2 minutes. Professional, clean, no weak spots. Send it. I hovered over the button at 11:47 p.m. 15 years of checks and transfers and auto pay and silence and lemon squares. 15 years of being the budget line nobody read, but everyone depended on. All of it sat behind one click. I pressed send. Then I closed the laptop, walked to my apartment, and slept 7 uninterrupted hours for the first time in months. The storm would come in the morning. I knew that, but that night the quiet was mine. 7 a.m. I woke to a phone screen full of wreckage. 14 missed calls from my mother, 6 from Megan, 2 from my father. A cascade of text messages stacked like bricks. Linda 6:02 a.m. Joanna Marie Sinclair, you call me right now. Linda 6:11 a.m. You cannot do this to your family. Linda 6:34 a.m. Your grandmother would be ashamed of you. Megan 6:08 a.m. WTF. Joanna Megan 6:15 a.m. You can't just cut me off. That's my car. Megan 6:22 a.m. Mom is literally crying right now. Are you happy, Ray? 6:41 a.m. Call your mother. I read every message. Then I set the phone down and made coffee. Here's what I noticed. 14 missed calls, 26 texts, and not a single one that began with, "Are you okay?" Not one that said, "We miss you." Not one that acknowledged I'd been gone for over 2 weeks. And no one had thought to check. When I stopped paying, they noticed in 7 hours. When I stopped existing under their roof, they didn't notice for 16 days. I didn't respond. I saved the messages, not as evidence, not for any courtroom or social media post. I saved them as a reminder for the next time. That stubborn voice in my head whispered, maybe they've changed. At noon, my phone rang again. Aunt Patty, I picked up. Joanna, honey, are you okay? 5 words, and she was the first person in my family to say them. Your mother's been calling everyone. She's telling people you've abandoned the family. A pause, but I was there that night, Joanna. I saw what happened and I should have said something. I didn't. I'm sorry. That cracked me more than anything Megan or my mother had thrown. Patty told me the things I couldn't see from Austin. Your mother's telling the ladies at church that you cut the family off because you're bitter about losing your job. She's using words like selfish and ungrateful. She actually said after everything we've done for her. And what have they done for me, Patty? She went quiet then. I know. Megan had posted on Facebook. No names, but obvious enough. When your own sister puts money over family. 37 likes, 12 comments, all supportive. I didn't look. Patty continued. Your mom is panicking about the mortgage. She didn't know it was $2,400 a month. She thought it was $800. She never looked at a statement. No, she never had to. You made sure of that. I let that land, and Dad, he sits on the porch. Doesn't say much. I think he knows he was wrong, Joanna. But your father has never once in 64 years admitted he was wrong about anything. He gets it from his father. I almost smiled, almost. Then Patty said something that tightened my chest. Megan quit her job last week. The one at the salon, the only one she had. She said the commute was too long. Your mother's paying for groceries on a credit card now. I thanked Patty. I didn't ask her to intervene. I didn't ask her to pass along any message. She'd already given me the one thing nobody else had, honesty. Before she hung up, she said, that night when you carried those boxes out, I stood up. I wanted to say something. Your mother looked at me and I sat down. I've been sick about it since. I know, Patty. I saw the weeks after the email were the hardest and the clearest of my life. Hard because grief doesn't care about your bank statements. Clear because for the first time in 15 years my calendar belonged to me. Sinclair and Whitmore signed a new client, a family-owned Tex-Mex chain with 11 locations across Central Texas. They needed a full restructuring plan. It was the biggest contract we'd ever landed, and it was mine to lead. I worked 12-hour days, not because I was running from anything, though I won't pretend the work didn't help fill the silence, but because I spent years giving my best hours to someone else's firm and my best money to people who packed it into boxes. This was different. Every spreadsheet I built, every proposal I drafted, every client call I took, it came back to me. Greg and I started planning the expansion. 3 new hires, a bigger office in the warehouse district. He wanted to host a grand opening event, invite clients, partners, a few local business journalists, make it official. You in? He asked. I'm in, but no family. Understood. That Saturday evening, I called Grandma Ruth at Sycamore Ridge, the assisted living facility outside Atlanta. She didn't know about any of it. I told her the short version, the layoff, the eviction, the move. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then I knew this day would come. I just hoped it wouldn't have to. Grandma, I started a company. We're opening a new office next month. Joanna, I want to be there. My throat closed. You'll sit in the front row. I'll need someone to drive me. Ask that partner of yours. Greg will pick you up himself. Good. Make sure he drives slow. I'm 84. May 1st arrived the way deadlines do, quietly for the person who said them loudly for everyone else. That morning, for the first time in 5 years, no payment left my account for 14 Birch Lane, Carterville, Georgia. The autopay had been canceled. The money stayed where it was. I was in a client meeting when my phone buzzed. I let it go. It buzzed again at lunch and again at 2. By 4 o'clock, I had 9 missed calls from my mother. I listened to one voicemail. Her voice was different, not angry, thin, careful. Joanna, there's a letter from the bank. The mortgage payment didn't go through. They're saying it's late. Did you forget to pay? I called her back at 6, sitting in my office with the door closed. Mom, I sent an email 30 days ago. Did you read it? That email? I thought you were upset. I thought you'd calm down. I was calm when I wrote it. I'm calm now. The payments have stopped. Joanna, you can't. You have 30 days to contact the bank and discuss restructuring options. I'll send you a guide on what to ask for. Silence. Then my mother's voice cracked. Not the theatrical crack she used when she needed Megan's sympathy, but something rare, smaller. This is our home, Joanna. I closed my eyes. It's the house I paid for 5 years, and you asked me to leave it. She hung up. I expected to feel something sharp. Guilt maybe, or satisfaction. What I felt was flat, like I finished a tax return. The numbers were correct. The form was filed. There was nothing left to calculate. That night, for the first time, my father called me directly. He called at 10 p.m. Central. I was on the couch in my apartment reading a client prospectus. The screen said, "Dad." I set the prospectus down, Joanna. A long pause, the kind that carries weight. I don't know what to say. You could start with sorry. Another pause. I heard him exhale. Slow, heavy. The way he breathed when his blood sugar was off. I'm not good at this, Joanna. Your mother said that night was best for everyone. I believed her. You packed my things into boxes, Dad. In front of Aunt Patty? In front of Mrs. Dawson. Did you think that was best for me? Nothing. No, he said. No, I didn't. The line went quiet enough to hear a television in his background. Some game show. Megan was probably in my old room with the door closed and the new curtains drawn. I need help with the mortgage, he said. I'm only working part-time. The insurance too. Your email said 60 extra days, but after that I don't know what. I sent a marketplace enrollment guide to your email. Patty can help you through it. You'll qualify for subsidies. Joanna, Dad, I'll answer questions about the process. I won't send money. He breathed again. Your mother says you're punishing us. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm living the life I should have started a long time ago. Silence stretched between Georgia and Texas like a wire pulled too tight. Then, almost at a whisper, I know I was wrong that night. I just don't know how to fix it. That was the closest Ray Sinclair had ever come to an apology. It wasn't enough, but it was something. Good night, Dad. Good night, Joanna. I hung up. The apartment was quiet. The quiet was mine. I want to pause here for a second. When my dad said, I know I was wrong. Part of me, the part that still remembers him teaching me to ride a bike at 6 years old, wanted to say, then come fix it. But I've learned that knowing you're wrong and choosing to do something about it are two very different things. If you're watching this and you've ever waited for an apology that came close but never quite arrived, I get it. Drop a comment below. Did you wait or did you walk? And if this story is hitting close to home, please subscribe. I'm almost at the part where everything changes. 6 weeks after the email, mid-June, Texas heat pressing against the office windows like a palm. My phone rang. Megan crying this time, real crying. Not the decorative kind she used at family dinners. Joanna, they're taking my car. The bank sent a repo notice. You co-signed. This is going to wreck your credit too. I'd been expecting this call for 3 weeks. I'd already handled it. I've spoken with the bank, I said. My attorney submitted a release request based on borrower default. My name comes off the loan within 10 business days. You have an attorney. The loan is yours now, Megan. You have 15 days to catch up on payments or surrender the vehicle. You're ruining my life. I paused. Let the sentence dissolve then. No, I'm stopping ruining mine. She hung up. 10 minutes later, my mother called. I let it ring. Voicemail. Do you know your sister is sobbing right now? Do you even have a heart, Joanna? I set the phone on silent and went back to the text restructuring file. Margins, labor costs, lease renegotiation. Numbers that made sense, numbers that didn't scream. 2 weeks later, Patty told me the car was gone, repossessed from the driveway on a Thursday afternoon while Megan was inside watching television. A tow truck and a clipboard and $38,000 of entitlement rolling down Birch Lane in the rear view. Megan had to ride with my mother now to the grocery store, to the rare job interview she'd agreed to attend, to everywhere. It was the first time in her life she couldn't leave a room by turning a key. Then something I didn't expect arrived in the mail. Not a bill, not a threat. A letter, handwritten from Grandma Ruth. The envelope was thin. One sheet folded in thirds. Her handwriting shook the way it always had since the tremor started, but the words were steady. Joanna, I heard everything. I'm not surprised. I'm sad but not surprised. I watched Linda favor Megan since that girl was 5 years old. And I told her more than once that she was building a house on one daughter's back and decorating it for the other. She didn't listen. She never does. You did the right thing. Helping without boundaries isn't generosity, Joanna. It's servitude. And you served long enough. I want to come to your grand opening. If you'll have me, tell that Greg fellow to drive carefully. I didn't survive 84 years to die on a Texas highway. Love, Grandma Ruth. I read it twice at my desk, then a third time. Then I put it down because the words were blurring. In 2 months, one person in my family had told me I did the right thing. One, an 84-year-old woman in an assisted living facility who could barely hold a pen. I called her that evening. Grandma, you're coming. Greg will pick you up himself. Front row, I like an aisle seat. These old knees don't fold the way they used to, I laughed. It was the first real laugh in weeks. Before we hung up, she told me one more thing. Linda called me last week. Sighed. You betrayed the family. I told her the only person who was betrayed in this story is Joanna. She hung up on me. She hung up on you. She does that when she hears something she can't argue with. You got your stubbornness from her, Joanna, but you got your spying from me. The grand opening was scheduled for the last Saturday in June. Greg sent the invitations by email and LinkedIn. Clients, local business owners, a reporter from the Austin Business Journal, and a handful of colleagues from the finance world who'd been watching our growth. One of those colleagues was Karen Webb. Karen and I had worked together briefly at Ashford years ago. She stayed in Nashville, but followed my career the way people do, distant, peripheral, until something interesting happens. Karen received her invitation and did what Karen always did. She shared it. A quick post in her church women's group chat, the same group my mother attended. Joanna Sinclair launching her own financial firm in Austin. Grand opening this month. So proud of her. It took 4 hours. 4 hours for the message to travel from Karen's phone to the group chat to Linda Sinclair's screen. Patty called me that evening. Your mother saw it. Saw what? Karen posted about your company. Your mother read it at the kitchen table. I've never seen her face do that before. Do what? Go white, then red, then just still. Linda called Megan into the kitchen. Did you know your sister has a company, Megan? A company. What kind of company? Linda called me. I didn't pick up. She called again. Then she called Patty. Why does Joanna have a company and nobody told me? Patty, and I love her for this, said. Maybe because nobody ever asked her. Linda, that night, according to Patty, my mother said 4 words to my father over dinner. 4 words that told me everything I needed to know about what was coming. We're going to Austin. I didn't know they were coming. I found out the hard way. The new office was beautiful. I'll say that plainly because I spent too many years making myself small about things I'd earned. 2,800 square ft in a converted warehouse on West 4th Street. Exposed brick, tall windows, 8 desks, a conference room with a glass wall, and above the front entrance in clean charcoal lettering, Sinclair and Whitmore Financial Advisory. Greg had outdone himself with the event. 52 guests, wine and sparkling water, and those bruschetta bites from the Italian place on South Congress, string lights across the ceiling, a sound system playing low jazz. Grandma Ruth sat in the front row in her wheelchair, wearing the pearl earrings she saved for occasions she considered worthy. She told Greg on the drive from the airport, "If there's no aisle seat, wheel me to the front." I didn't fly to Texas to look at the backs of people's heads. I stood at the podium at 7:30, gray blazer, hair pulled back, hands steady. 2 years ago, I started this company at a kitchen table with one partner and one client. Tonight, we stand in a real office with real clients and a real future. I want to thank Greg Whitmore, who believed in this before I did. Our team, Lisa, Marcus, Devin, Priya, and our 3 newest members, and our clients who trusted us with their numbers and their families' livelihoods. Then I looked at Ruth, and I want to thank my grandmother, Ruth Sinclair. She taught me that generosity is a strength, but knowing when to stop is wisdom. Ruth lifted her hand. A small wave, the room applauded. 40 minutes in, I was shaking hands with a restaurant owner from San Marcos when Aunt Patty appeared at the entrance. She'd flown in without telling me. She crossed the room and hugged me hard. "I owe you this from that night," she whispered. I was refilling my water glass when the front door opened and the energy in the room shifted the way air shifts before a storm. A drop in pressure you feel in your teeth. Linda walked in first, hair done, church dress. Megan behind her in jeans and a jacket she'd borrowed from someone. I recognized it as Patty's. And behind them both, lingering at the threshold like he wasn't sure the floor would hold him, my father. My mother scanned the room, the logo, the desks, the conference room, the crowd. 50 people who knew my name and none of them knew hers. She walked straight to me. Didn't look at Ruth. Didn't look at Patty. "Joanna, why did you hide this from us?" I set my glass down. "Mom, you cleared my room before I got home. You packed my things. You didn't call me for 2 weeks. And now you want to know why I didn't share my life with you." Conversations nearby stopped. A client from Dripping Springs lowered his wine glass. Lisa, our office manager, looked at Greg. Greg looked at me. He didn't move. He just stood close enough to be seen. Megan stepped forward. "So you had money this whole time and you let them take my car? The car I co-signed for? The car I asked you to handle 2 years ago? The car you drove to your new room? My old room? The night you didn't ask if I had somewhere to sleep." The jazz kept playing. Nobody touched their drinks. From her wheelchair, Ruth's voice cut through the room, clear, steady, the voice of a woman who'd spent 84 years learning when to speak and when to hold. "Linda, this is not your place. Step outside." My mother turned white. My mother started crying. But this wasn't the living room in Carterville, and these weren't her neighbors. Nobody reached for tissues. Nobody rubbed her back. "I have sacrificed everything for this family, Mom." My voice was even. The same tone I use in client presentations when the numbers are bad and the client needs to hear them anyway. "I paid your mortgage for 5 years. I paid Dad's insurance for 8 years. I paid Megan's car for 2 years. None of that was your sacrifice. It was mine. And you repaid it by packing my things into cardboard boxes the night I lost my job. The room was still. I could hear the ice settling in someone's glass. Megan tried. "This is so unfair. You're trying to embarrass us." "I'm not embarrassing anyone. I'm stating facts." In my own office, at my own event. I held her gaze until she looked away. Then my father stepped forward past my mother, past Megan. He stood in front of me with his hands at his sides and his shoulders lower than I'd ever seen them. "Joanna." His voice was thick. "I'm sorry. 2 words, no qualifiers, no but. No, your mother said." I looked at him. This man who'd spent 64 years avoiding every hard conversation, who'd folded my shirts into a box rather than fold his pride. And I saw something I hadn't seen before. He was ashamed. "Thank you, Dad," I said. "That's the first honest thing anyone in this family has said to me in 2 months. I turned to my mother and sister. "I think you should go. This is a professional event." Greg opened the door. Linda and Megan walked out without a word. My father lingered 1 second, looked at the sign above my desk, then he followed them. The last guest left by 9. Greg locked the door. The caterers packed the bruschetta trays. The string lights still hung from the ceiling like little punctuation marks at the end of a sentence I'd been trying to finish for 15 years. Ruth and I sat in the empty office, her wheelchair parked next to my desk. Patty had gone to the hotel, promising to come back in the morning. Ruth reached over and took my hand. Her skin was thin. Her grip was not. "I'm proud of you," she said. "Not because of this," she waved at the room. "Because you stopped before it was too late. I wish I'd stopped sooner." "Then start from here." I looked at the logo on the far wall, the desks, the conference room, Greg's terrible handwriting still on the whiteboard from last week's strategy session. All of it real, all of it mine. "Your mother," Ruth said carefully, "called me after she saw Karen's post. Told me you'd betrayed the family. I told her the only person betrayed in this story was you." She hung up. "You told me. I'm telling you again because you need to hear it twice." She squeezed my hand. "Linda is my daughter. I love her. But she built her world on your back and got so comfortable she forgot you were underneath. That's not love. That's furniture." I laughed. It hurt and it healed at the same time. Patty had mentioned one more thing before she left quietly by the coat rack. "Linda told your father on the drive back to the hotel that she's going to call a lawyer, see if she can make you keep paying the mortgage." I nodded. I wasn't worried. Generosity doesn't come with a subpoena. The weeks after the grand opening played out the way gravity plays out slowly, then all at once. Patty kept me updated, not because I asked, because she decided that being the family's quiet observer was no longer a role she could stomach. The mortgage 2 months delinquent. The bank issued a 60-day warning. Linda and Ray applied for a loan modification, but with Ray's part-time income and no second earner, the numbers didn't work. The bank offered 2 options: sell the house or take in a renter for the upstairs bedrooms. They chose the renter. A graduate student from Kennesaw State moved in by August. Linda hated every minute of it. Megan's car gone, repossessed, sold at auction, balance still owing. Her credit score dropped below 500. She rode with Linda everywhere, to the grocery store, to the Goodwill where she dropped off resumes, to the one interview she actually dressed up for. It was at a garden supply store 20 minutes from the house. She didn't get the job. She applied again the next week. She got it the second time. My father's insurance. The marketplace plan cost more than what I'd been paying, even with the subsidy. Patty helped him fill out the paperwork. He grumbled about the website. He filled every prescription on time. Linda's reputation. Karen's post had done its quiet work. The church women knew. Not everything, but enough. Enough to ask Linda gentle questions she couldn't answer without lying. "How's Joanna doing in Austin? We heard she started a business. That must make you so proud." Linda smiled through every one of them. The lawyer she consulted told her there was no legal mechanism to compel an adult child to continue voluntary financial support. "It's generosity," he said, "not a contract." Generosity isn't a contract. I could have told her that for free. She called on a Thursday, early August. I was walking back from the coffee shop on Rainy Street, iced Americano sweating in my hand. I almost didn't pick up Joanna. Her voice was different, stripped. Not the Linda who chaired family meetings or rallied the church group or folded her hands before delivering a verdict. This was the Linda who existed underneath all of that. Smaller, tired, and for the first time in my memory, uncertain. "I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have made you leave. I shouldn't have let Megan say those things." She paused. "Megan was always close to me. She was home. You were always gone, working, traveling. I picked the one who was near me. I was selfish. I let her talk. She'd earned at least that. I was afraid of being alone. Joanna, your father barely speaks. Megan was my company, so I protected her. Even when she didn't deserve it, even when it meant hurting you. You didn't just hurt me, Mom. You erased me." Silence. "What can I do?" she asked. Respect my decision. I'm not paying your bills anymore. That's not cruelty. It's clarity. If you want a relationship with me, it starts with seeing me as a person, not a paycheck. You're my daughter, then treat me like one. I heard her breath catch, then the line went quiet. Not a hang-up, just emptiness. The kind of emptiness that sits between two people who don't have the right words yet, but might eventually find them. She said, "Okay," then she hung up. I stood on the sidewalk for a full minute. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel triumph. I felt something I hadn't expected. Clean, like a window someone finally opened after years of paint sealing it shut. 3 days after my mother's call, Megan sent me the longest text message she'd ever written. I know it was the longest because in 30 years of being her sister, her messages had never exceeded 2 lines. "Joanna, I know I messed up. I know I should have asked how you were that night. I know the car thing was wrong. I just always thought you had everything figured out and I was the one who was struggling. Mom always said you were the strong one and I was the one who needed help. I believed her. I'm sorry." I read it twice. There was something real in it. Not much, but a thread. The kind of thread that if you pull it carefully might unravel something worth rebuilding. Then I scrolled down. "Can we talk about the car situation?" I stopped reading. There it was. The apology was a doorway, and behind the doorway was a cash register. Maybe she meant the first part. I think she did. But the second part proved that Megan still couldn't separate "I'm sorry" from "I need." I replied, "Megan, I accept your apology for the words that night. That took courage, but I won't discuss money with you anymore. If you need financial guidance, I can recommend a counselor. I love you, but I need space." She didn't respond. 2 weeks later, Patty told me something that made me set my phone down gently and stare at the wall for a while. Megan had gone to a job interview at a garden supply store. The first real interview she'd attended in 3 years. She didn't get it. Then she applied again and got hired the second time. Small, fragile, but hers. Maybe that thread was worth something after all. Late August. I was reviewing a quarterly projection when Priya knocked on my office door. "There's a man in the lobby. Says his name is Sinclair." My chest did something involuntary. "Send him in." Ray walked into my office the way he walked into everything. Slowly, shoulders slightly hunched, eyes scanning the room like he was inventorying it. He looked at the desks, the team photos on the wall, the whiteboard, the conference room. Then he saw the sign on my door, co-founder Joanna Sinclair. He stood in front of it for a long time. "I didn't know you had a company," he said, still looking at the sign. "I didn't know you paid our mortgage for 5 years. I didn't know your insurance kept me alive." He turned to face me. "I didn't know because I didn't ask. That's on me." He sat in the chair across from my desk. He looked older than 64. The flight had tired him, or maybe it was everything before the flight. "I'm not here to ask for money," he said. "I just wanted to see it." "What you built." "Why?" "Because I should have seen it a long time ago." His eyes went wet. Ray Sinclair, the man who hadn't cried at his own mother's funeral, pressed his thumb and forefinger against the bridge of his nose and let his shoulders shake. I didn't hug him. I wasn't ready. But I poured him a glass of water from the pitcher on my desk and sat down across from him. "Dad, we can rebuild this, but it starts from zero. No money, no guilt, just honesty." He nodded. Didn't promise anything grand. Didn't swear he'd change. He just nodded. Sometimes that's enough to start. Sometimes it isn't. But I was willing to find out. By September, the Texas heat had begun to loosen its grip, and so had the tightness in my chest that I'd been carrying since March. Sinclair and Whitmore had 8 employees. Our quarterly revenue was up 40%. We'd signed 2 more restaurant clients, a small construction firm, and a dental practice group looking for retirement plan restructuring. Real businesses with real families behind them. The kind of clients who send thank you cards after you saved them $12,000 on a tax strategy. I kept every card in my desk drawer, My apartment had upgraded. 2 bedrooms now, same neighborhood. I ran the Ladybird Lake Trail on mornings when the humidity allowed it. Saturday evenings, I read on the balcony. Sunday mornings I called Grandma Ruth. Back in Carterville, the new normal has settled like dust after a demolition. The house on Birch Lane had a graduate student renting the upstairs. Linda cooked dinner every night in a kitchen that was no longer entirely hers. She and Ray managed the reduced mortgage, barely, but they managed. Megan's apartment was a studio above a dry cleaner's on Main Street. She worked at the garden supply store 5 days a week. It wasn't a career, but it was a paycheck with her name on it. And she hadn't quit. My father and I talked every 2 weeks, short calls, careful ones. We talked about the weather in Austin, about his tomato plants, about a documentary he'd watched on PBS. We didn't talk about the night with the boxes, not yet. But the calls kept coming, and that was something. My mother and I hadn't spoken since August. I didn't close the door. I just didn't open it. Megan sent me a photo one afternoon. No caption, no request, just a picture of a small succulent she'd planted on her apartment balcony. I didn't reply, but I saved it. My Sunday call with Grandma Ruth ran longer than usual that week. She'd had a good day, walked the hallway twice with her walker, beat her roommate Margaret at Scrabble, and eaten a piece of pie she described as tolerable, which is high praise from me. Are you happy, Joanna? I thought about it. Happiness felt like the wrong word. Too bright, too complete. I'm peaceful, I said for the first time. Peaceful is the best kind of happy. Everything else is extra. I wrote that down after we hung up. Taped it to the bottom of my monitor where I see it every morning before the email started. The next day, I did something small. I took Ruth's letter, the handwritten one with the shaking script and the steady words, and had it framed. Nothing fancy, plain wood glass front. I hung it on the wall behind my desk, right next to the Sinclair and Whitmore logo. Greg noticed your grandmother. My grandmother, he read it through the glass. She's right, you know, about the servitude thing. She's been right about most things. That afternoon, I stood at my window and watched Austin do what Austin does. Traffic, music leaking from a bar down the block, a woman jogging past with a golden retriever. Nobody out there knew my name. Nobody knew I used to be the family ATM. Nobody owed me anything, and I owed nothing to anyone. Here, I was just Joanna, and that was enough. Monday morning, 8:15. I sat at my desk with a coffee and opened my laptop. 3 new client inquiries in the inbox, a calendar full of meetings. The Tex-Mex chain had just signed for another year. Greg knocked on the door frame. Ready for the week? Ready? He left. I looked at the small collection of objects on my desk. Ruth's framed letter. A photo of the team at the grand opening. A mug Greg bought me that said co-founder in plain black letters. And one more thing, a photograph in a cheap silver frame. Me at 22, cap and gown, tassel pinned, standing in front of the university sign. The same photo my mother had pulled off the wall the morning she knew I'd been laid off. The same one my father had packed into a cardboard box without meeting my eyes. It sat on my desk now in my office in a company with my name on the building. I didn't say anything that night, not because I didn't have the words, because I knew the silence would say everything they needed to hear, and eventually it did. I don't hate my family. I want to make that clear. I don't sit at my desk plotting their downfall or imagining their apologies. I just don't carry their weight anymore. Boundaries aren't walls, they're doors. I hold the key, and holding that key isn't cruelty. It's the first kind thing I ever did for myself. If you're the one paying the bills no one thanks you for, the one holding everything together while everyone treats your effort like oxygen, invisible until it's gone. I want you to hear this. You are allowed to stop. Stopping doesn't mean you don't love them. It means you finally love yourself the same way you've been loving everyone else. And if that scares them, if they call you selfish or ungrateful, remember they're not mourning you. They're mourning the convenience of you. There's a difference. My name is Joanna Sinclair. I'm 37 years old. I run a company I built with my own hands. I sleep in an apartment I pay for with money that stays in my account. I talk to my father every 2 weeks. I saved a photo of my sister's plant. And I finally stopped being fine for everyone else. Thank you for staying until the end. I'd love to hear your story. Have you ever been the person holding everything together while no one noticed? Or have you been on the other side and realized it too late? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this story made you feel something, if it reminded you that your boundaries aren't selfish, they're necessary, share it with someone who needs to hear that today. There are more stories like mine in the description below. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself first. Nobody else has that.